On that note, let me welcome from SAS, Wilson Raj. Wilson is the Global Director of Customer Intelligence at SAS. Collaborating with customers, industry influencers, partners, and product teams, he's responsible for global marketing to establish, evolve, and evangelize SAS's analytics-powered marketing solutions. With 20 years of experience in multiple industries, Wilson has built data-driven brand value, engagement, and loyalty through expertise in integrating advertising, digital marketing, social media, multi-channel relationship marketing, and public relations. So Wilson, let me turn things over to you here. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks to David and Fern for doing a great job in just sort of setting out the foundations of artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is undeniably one of the hottest topics for all businesses and certainly for marketers. So that's great, right? All right, so when you look at the discussion that we had earlier with Fern and David, when you net it all out, it really boils down to two different aspects, and all the other elements that were discussed fall under this, right? It's cognitive computing, which is really a human-like interaction with software solutions, right? And it just offers answers that are the best, but not always right. And I'm going to qualify that statement as we bring in the other dimension to AI, which is the human. And then, of course, you have the machine learning aspect, which really automates systems that learns visually from patterns and predictions, and then helps you to amplify those decisions without minimal human thought. I think the main way to think about AI for broadly in your business context, and certainly in marketing, is to define artificial intelligence and all the components that were discussed in terms of the tasks that humans would do rather than how humans think. I think that's a very important distinction, because when topics such as machine learning and AI comes up, in the business setting, certainly for marketing, it's about how humans think. People invariably go there. So you get visions of iRobot, the Will Smith movie, or any of the other, sci-fi folks where artificial intelligence is taking over the world and suddenly taking over marketing, right? So I think when you think about how, what are the tasks that you as a marketer would do from an AI perspective, that's where you would focus that on. And so I think it's really imperative to have that understanding as you look at your strategies. Now, when we look at AI, I think it's easy to get stymied by all these definitions, and this is actually a graphic back in the late 90s from a textbook. I don't know whether it's digitized. It's probably still in some kind of hardcover with 1,000 pages, and there's this diagram that SAS developed as a course for data mining primer, and it had a chapter on AI, and this is how graphically it was represented, right? And some of the topics were discussed in terms of pattern recognition, machine learning, which is a subset there. KDD is knowledge discovery in database. Frankly, I don't know what that means, and certainly there's data mining, which is right at the core of what you see. So here's the thing, right? I don't want you to see this, right? But instead, I would like you to transpose that into sort of a strategy view. So what you, as a business person, as a marketing leader, should see is the interplay between the human, you as a marketer, and the intelligence, the machine learning, right, that's represented in this diagram. And you can see here the diagram shows the pieces where you need more of that judgment, right, the human intervention, the thinking, right, because we define that AI is not necessarily replacing human thinking, but human tasks in a very smart, automated, automatic, and adaptive way. And so you have places where, as a marketer or as a business person, when you're using these technologies where you have to actually design the questions, define the objectives. That's where it all starts, right? You have to define the marketing objective. What do you want to achieve from a business perspective? You have to, then you can use the technology that's represented in blue, such as signal detection of the situation, pattern recognition, and all those different things that we talked about in predictive and modeling that shows what the opportunity is. And then, once you get to the strategy part, with those inputs, you can then start to abstract and reframe and shape and influence what the strategy is. And then, of course, you implement, right? You can execute, you can also automate that part, but then with the analysis that comes in from machine learning, you're able to then refine your strategy and then move through. I think this is really key. And a good example of this is something that we are all familiar with Amazon. Amazon actually uses this kind of a strategy machine, if you will, and the company has at least 21 data science systems or database systems, right, which are all powered by some aspect of machine learning and AI. So they would include things like supply chain, what else? You have inventory forecasting systems, sales forecasting, profit optimizing systems, a recommendation engine, which we all see, right, when you get these recommendations of what you should purchase next based on your previous purchases. And so how that plays out with the machine learning or the AI and the marketers or the business folks at Amazon is that, for example, if the sales forecasting system detects that an item is really popular, right? Let's say it's a book or a article of clothing or whatnot, that causes the supply chain system to optimize that particular inventory across the warehouses, right? And then the recommendation engine kicks in and starts pushing that particular item even more through pop-ups or through content, all right, or stuff that will show in your profile. And then in turn, the profit optimization system starts to adjust the pricing in real time. And then these changes are then in turn updates the sales forecast for that category or for that item across the board. So everything is linked in this chain that we see here in this diagram, and that's a great example of what machine learning can do, right? To be able to augment the kind of higher level, decision making and creativity that the marketer can bring. Now, the Amazon example that I talked about really contains these three pillars. So there's obviously the data, right? And I'm going to talk about this in the next slide a little bit more, but that's really more around not just the data points itself, but it also includes the models that are associated with that data, external data, internal data, whatever is historical or forecasted. So that is a linchpin right there. And then you have the discovery. Of course, it starts with algorithms or the actual code, right? The calculation that gives you a decision point based on your input. But the key thing is that you want to be able to automate and adapt and anticipate changing situations, just as the example I showed with talked about with the Amazon warehouse example there. And then the third element is deployment. This is not just pushing out the particular interaction to your customers, but it's also internally, how do you deploy those processes and insights across your organization? So you have to have some capabilities in visualizing that data, optimizing, that was what Dave and Fern talked about, how you employ advanced analytics, and then the decision management piece that was also mentioned earlier. So these are the key pillars here. Now, how does that look from your perspective? All right. No, this is not the wrong diagram. This is actually a picture of a shuttle up in deep space with some interesting vectors there. How machine learning and artificial intelligence really meets marketing is ultimately in what we call a state vector. Now, this state vector is actually is an engineering concept that has been very popular in the science community. It's typically used by NASA, and they use state vectors to control shuttles or satellites during operations. So you have variables in the shuttle that would show the present position, velocity components, and other factors of that orbital trajectory, right, at various snapshots in time, so that now you can analyze where this vehicle has been, where it is now, and where it can be 5 minutes or even 5 hours or 5 months from now, right, past, present, and future. So vectors are an excellent prediction tool for launching and orbiting and landing positions for the shuttle. And that same concept is used in a lot of the analytic solutions that you see in machine learning today. Certainly SAS uses this notion of a state vector. We call it a customer state vector. And so you can use customer state vectors to not only predict marketing segments, you can use that for detecting fraud, to discover the underlying set of variables that are very important to move a customer through various phases of their purchase cycle. And so once you build a model, you can really get a good picture of how that state variable can then influence your decision making in the life cycle. Now, speaking of life cycles, we're all very familiar with the concept of this notion of the relationship value as a customer, whether it's B2B or B2C, interacts with the brand, right? The key thing what machine learning and artificial intelligence does is to what machine learning and artificial intelligence does for marketers is really to give you an advantage in every phase of the customer interaction cycle with the brand. So in terms of the acquisition phase, what you can do is to make that acquisition phase a lot faster and a lot more valuable by using some of the models, some of the things that were mentioned earlier in terms of audience targeting, lookalike models, audience profile, real-time and predictive kinds of things. And then what you can do now is to extend the level of engagement in terms of growth, loyalty, and retention, and moving it through behavioral monitoring and growth modeling. And then the other thing you can do, obviously, is to make sure that you can catch churn a lot sooner, a lot faster than at the actual point of attrition, so you can predict that. I think the way you use this graphic is really to set some objectives in terms of your marketing to see, do you have that data, do you have the decision management, and do you have that deployment capability to be able to shift the graph in these particular ways. Another way to look at this is to really look at it in terms of opportunity cost. What is the cost of not using some form of cognitive computing or machine learning, right, in order to shift the graph in a more favorable, more profitable light. So that is absolutely key. So these are the examples of it. Fern and David talked through a lot of them a little bit more in detail and highlighted some of them. I have not ranked this in particular order, but actually what I've done here is to kind of show very rudimentary artificial intelligence or machine learning in terms of email spam filtering, and sort of ranged it to something that is maybe a little bit more complex. So I think the notion is that whether you know it or not, or embrace it or not, you are doing, as a business, some form of machine learning and artificial intelligence. If you're doing spam filtering and some basic rudimentary segmentation or even CLV calculations, you're absolutely on that path, right? The question becomes, as I showed in the previous graph, are you using that across the entire interaction cycle from a customer perspective and moving that forward? So I just wanted to add on to some of the examples. These are examples that are that we have worked with throughout our own technologies here at SAS. Swisscom is actually a European telco, and what their issue there was, they were trying to better understand customers by automating and analyzing their call center conversations and the social media commentary that was coming in at a very fast clip. And typically they have about 10,000 daily service requests. Now this is something that a human can't obviously process, right, the task. And so what they used was a series of cognitive computing technologies, such as text recognition, natural language processing, sentiment analysis, some visualization as well, and they reduced what they used to do that took weeks to identify and train their call center staff to basically a training period of about 24 hours. And previously, a staff of 5 people were addressing 20% of all the inquiries and service concerns. And with AI and machine learning, a staff of 4 is handling 100%. So that's pretty amazing. The second example is a German insurance company. And what they were trying to do is to really take advantage of telematics. So they were trying to get data in that was coming in from cars, from sensors, and to be able to use that combined with some historical customer profile data to decide what kind of policy pricings they could have, what kind of content should they be pushed out to the insured folks, and then to be able to have a more real-time knowledge of their needs and their aspirations. So that was another one. And the third one is a bank that's in Westpac. They had a program called Know Me, where they pretty much wanted to infuse more machine learning style next best offers and next best actions into their channel. And what they did was really to move across 3 different kinds of data sets. There was a great variety and volume of that, and then they were able to extend 60 million online interactions with customers per month and increase that to reach 100 million per month in just 1 year. So dramatic results there. So what's next? I think you can see, let's see, is it being pushed out? It should be pushed out. The other piece, so we've talked about a lot of key areas around machine learning, algorithms, but the other things that will be evolving are things such as voice recognition. So today we're very familiar with speech attendant agents such as Siri and Alexa and Cortana, and some of these technologies are now being used by marketers to be able to enable voice recognition queries of their marketing dashboards and sales dashboards. So here you have a sales dashboard that shows visualization of campaign metrics and so on, and it's only a matter of time. In fact, it's already available today in different platforms using Siri and Cortana and even Alexa, where as a marketer or as a business person you can ask the interface to show what activities are profitable, which are working well, show some new segments. All that will be then processed into the algorithm and then executed through the model itself. So this is probably, it's going to be mainstream sooner than we think. So you don't really have to worry about typing in queries. You're actually using natural language to be able to ask business questions, and the systems behind from a machine learning and cognitive computing perspective will give you the answers directly through the interface. So to wrap it up, what are some of the key takeaways? I think, as I mentioned earlier, artificial intelligence and AI is really not to replace human thinking, but rather tasks that in today's world they've become monumental. They're absolutely more complex, right? And you have to do it in a very scalable way. So what we have to do here is really look at the key requirements in terms of what these takeaways are. And I'll wait. Firstly is the precision of the customer insight. So that is some capability that is non-negotiable. The notion of how you can aggregate and refine the digital and physical presence of the brand and the customers and get that to be unified. So we're not talking about building big data warehouses, but really how you mix that and be able to apply the models. Secondly, you got to be able to use machine learning to shift from just transactional loyalty programs to being a loyalty company. That means not just using transactional interactions as rewards, but to use machine learning to be able to recognize the value of those customers individually and to engage them according to their journey across the life cycle. You also want to be able to enforce or rather optimize customer experience that is really consistent and reinforce that across all the channels. And machine learning can help you activate that. And lastly, to be able to orchestrate all your customer communications in whatever format, whether it's digital or non-digital, whether it's real-time or batch, to be able to provide you with the decisioning to invest in the relevant content and then repurpose that contextually for digital and physical use. So with that, I hope this was helpful from a strategy perspective to be able to undergird all the different things that Fern and David shared with respect to artificial intelligence and machine learning. So thanks a lot, and I'm going to hand it back to you.
And on that note from all of us here today, thank you very much for attending. This concludes today's webinar.
And that does conclude today's conference. Thank you for your participation.